I'm Guy Kawasaki. I am the Chief Evangelist of Canva and the creator of the Remarkable People podcast. In a prior life, I was Chief Evangelist of Apple, on the Board of Trustees of Wikipedia, and a Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador. I've written 15 books. This is The Art of the Start. And if you're starting a tech company, that's the one to read. This is my latest. It's called Wise Guy. It's a collection of stories of the wisdom that I learned through my life. I am also a happy Restream customer, so I'll be seeing you on the Restream broadcast very soon.
Hello, my friends, and welcome. I am your host, Anya, and this is special edition of Restream. I'm here with the Restream team in Austin, Texas, and today we have a very special guest for our very special conversation. We are going to be talking about building influence through live video and how live streaming can support you on that journey. My guest today is Guy Kawasaki. He's the chief evangelist of Canva, podcaster and host of Remarkable People, author and speaker. Hello, Guy, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a nice little intro for you here. Very, very cool. Thanks for recording this for us. And yeah, where are you joining us today from?
I am in Santa Cruz, California, in a closet. So literally in a closet. See, this is a real background back here.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I was super excited about.
No green screens for me, baby. This is a real screen. I mean, a real background.
A lot of people think I do have a green screen, but that's actually not a green screen. It's real stuff. It's a real
Oh, there you go.
And, of course, real flowers, real lightsaber, everything real. So we're on for real here. So this is amazing. This is very exciting. The conversation today is going to be revolving around how to build influence. And of course, Guy, as a very influential person who was working with a lot of great brands earlier in his career, will share his tips and tricks on how to get where he is today. You are, guys, in the chat. I'm seeing people starting to join us and say hello. They say, wow, it's great. Go Anya, go Guy. Thank you. We really need the support because, live streaming, you never know what happens. People are saying hello. Thank you so much for joining today. And we are welcoming your questions. We actually would love to make sure that we address your questions and anything you would like to know. So feel free to drop them onto the chat and we'll highlight them as we speak. So I guess we're going to get started with just kind of like a quick introduction. I mentioned that you are the host of Remarkable People. And I know Remarkable People started as a podcast. So most people were consuming that through audio. What inspired you to add a video to that project, since now it's a live show as well?
Because I figured out that I thought the hard part of podcasting would be getting the guests, recording the interview, and editing and producing the interview. But really, all of that is not so hard. The hard part is marketing the podcast. So yeah, and I think that live, I go live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific using Restream. And that has been one of the major and most important marketing tools. People love live. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And that's a great way. Thank you so much for saying great things about Restream, first of all. But yeah, it is an amazing way to kind of supercharge your reach, right? Like some people would consume your content through audio, but then you open up a lot more doors if you're adding your social following to the picture. And we will talk about your social following, which is pretty substantial in just a minute here. But before we get there, I am curious, since we started the conversation about adding live videos, so going live, marketing your show, getting those viewers and connections. Why is it important to go live on multiple social platforms and not just add that video on YouTube or Facebook? Why did you choose to get all the channels together?
For me, it's purely expediency. So I've given up the concept that I'm trying to control things. And so I don't care if people watch me on Twitter or Periscope or Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. All I want them to do is listen to my podcast. So I don't care where they see the live video. And in the old days, prior to something like Restream, I would I would have to do multiple live appearances to get the same number of platforms. I think Restream is available on 30. I don't do 30. I do about 4 or 5. But it would be doing 4 or 5 separate shows. And then the next step, of course, was, well, now you can restream to 4 or 5 platforms at once. But then, how do you get the comments? So you'd have to have multiple windows. So one for Periscope, one for Twitter or Periscope, one for Facebook, one for LinkedIn, and one for YouTube. And then you'd have these windows open and you have to try to watch the comments coming in from multiple places. And that's mission impossible. And so the beauty for me of Restream is not only do I go out to 4 or 5 places at once, I also can get comments from 4 or 5 places at once. And that is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, we're going to demonstrate how amazing that is and how easy the comments and including your audience into the conversation can be if you're using something like Restream. Right now, by the way, for those who wonder, we are live on 6 platforms. I'm live on LinkedIn, Twitter, a couple of YouTube channels, including my personal, and Facebook personal profile. So hello, friends and mom, if you're watching. And and of course, Restream Facebook page, official fan page for our service. So yeah, a lot of great comments coming all together. I see Ian Anderson Gray says, giving up caring where people see it. That's the great reason to multi-stream. Definitely. Just bring it to where people already are and where they are ready to consume your content. And of course, we have lots of hands up and cheers. That is amazing. And great questions, great comments. Like, not only you get the comments, you also get to post them in the feed. So basically, that's what we're doing right now. We're recognizing people and welcoming them to the show, since this is a two-way street. This is what live streaming is. It's a conversation. So let's talk about.
I think you should point out that it's not like you have several engineers and producers behind you supporting it. It's just me and you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
This is inconceivable to have done this on 6 platforms at once by yourself. So
no, not at all. Yeah, it's just me. Some people prefer to have a co-producer, which is something that Restream supports as well. But for me personally, it has always been a one-girl show. So I'm the one highlighting comments, doing all the graphics and everything. Because let's face it, Restream Studio is pretty foolproof. If I can do it, you can definitely do it as well. That's what I usually tell people. And I'm already getting some medals from LinkedIn. Carl is giving me the golden one, first place, the star. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate your support. So let's talk about evangelism, as that's your profession, that's your mission, and you often say that evangelism is coming from a Greek world. It means bringing the good news.
Yes.
So how can interactive live video help the mission of evangelists?
Well, as you say, evangelism comes from a Greek word meaning bringing the good news. And so you have to get the good news out. And if you can get the good news out at 6 places instead of 1 at the same time, I mean, why not, right? So the more the merrier here. And evangelism is fundamentally an outward focused activity. So, and I say this is true even in a company. Of course, you have to have your employees also evangelized that your product or service is good. But from then on, it's outward focused. So the more ways and faster and easier and more efficient you can get out, the better your evangelism /marketing/sales will be.
Yeah, that's an amazing insight. So thinking about evangelism as a vehicle, as a tool for marketing your product, for building your brand, for creating that voice in that virtual space where we all exist these days, right? No matter what you're selling it online at this point.
All Jesus could do was walk around, man. I got like 6 platforms at once.
And 3 million followers on a couple of them. So that's door-to-door sales scaled and supercharged, right? Like this is the next level of it. Anita is here saying, love engaging with audiences all at once and being able to show comments. That is actually a great point. So we might as well, I might overlay this chat here. So as new comments are coming in, we will actually be able to see them all. And this is one of the beautiful things about Restream, is that you can actually show all your comments as an overlay. So people from YouTube, you see.
I didn't notice.
This is like so guys, if you're watching, just drop a quick comment in the chat, so because we only showcase the new ones when once you enable the function. But yeah, just send us a quick message, say hello, and you'll see like how all this messages pop up, and you will see how different platforms kind of like come together, and you can see people interacting within each other as part of this experience. So here we go. Love the chat overlay. Thanks, Anita. So yeah, something new,
I
right?
did not even know. I learned something new today.
Amazing. You see, here we go. So we see like Carl from LinkedIn says, will the video be available later with the stream? And if I can watch it, if you miss the show, absolutely. On LinkedIn, on all the platforms, it will be available. It will stay there forever. Fires will say hi from Boston. This is YouTube. Hello from Tito and on Facebook. And so here we go.
Wait, so later on, someone watching the archive of this on LinkedIn will see the overlay also, not just the LinkedIn comments below the window that's playing the video?
No, they will see everything. So they will see everything that you can see on this side with chat overlay. So all this hellos, and that's great. And hellos from Alex Bell from YouTube. And you can see how the platform icons appear there as well. So people can actually talk to each other. So now Alex Bell, for example, can see what Doug is saying on Facebook and then can react to that. So that is the power of multi-streaming done right, right? Little pitch in here.
Does anybody else do that? I've never seen it.
This is pretty unique feature compared to most of the software solutions that are out there on the market. So we're super, this is something that many people do. But this is how you include people in your audience. Morgan says here, I love Guy, follow fellow surfer. That's true. That is what you have on your LinkedIn, that you are kind of good at surfing. Is that how you say it? Or mediocre surfing?
I am. My goal is to be the best of the worst people at one break in Santa Cruz in particular. So
that's amazing.
I surfed 2 hours this morning, and I'm going to go surfing after this again today.
That is beautiful. Well, I mean, you're already better than me because I've never done that. So, that's like real goals.
Austin has paddleboarding in the river.
That is true. And I've done that actually a couple of times. So you can paddleboard, and you can also do a couple of other water things, but not quite surfing. Not quite that.
Watch the bats, and eat barbecue, and go to South by Southwest. That's it.
Exactly. That's awesome. So another question that I had for you, in the intro, you showed a couple of books that you wrote. So you're a book author and bestseller for New York bestseller, and a couple of other award winner. So in your Art of the Start, which is actually one of the books that I have read, you suggest that entrepreneurs should lower the barriers for adoption of their product. Right. That's kind of like one of the recommendations for people who are building new things. So when you think about live video companies and solutions like Restream, what do you think they can do to foster the adoption of live streaming in general?
Well, I think the barriers are pretty low already. It's certainly it doesn't call for a lot of equipment and a lot of expense or a lot of expertise. So I don't know how it can get much better. I think one thing that many people should do is they should invest in a good camera and microphone. So I would suggest that the built-in microphone and the built-in camera, especially if you're using a laptop, is just not good enough. So what you're seeing here is I'm using an A6100, a Sony A6100 with a 28 millimeter lens. This is a Heil PR40 mic, and I have a ring light, and I have two upward facing strobe light, regular lights also. And then all this black stuff you see behind me, that's all sound deadening material. So I'm in a closet, and I noticed there was echo. So now there's no echo. But I will tell you that if you added up the camera and the mic and the lights and everything, it's probably $1,200, $1,500. And so that's a no-brainer to me. I probably make 50 or 60 virtual speeches a year. And so to spend $1,500 on that is trivial. I mean, I used to spend how much, going to a trade show. Well, that doesn't even cover going to a trade. I mean, if you think about it, if you went to a trade for, let's say you lived in Silicon Valley, you went to Las Vegas for a trade show, The airfare is, I don't know, 750. The hotel is another, depending on where you stay, another 750. And then you add the taxis and all that. You spend $2,000-3,000 for 2 days in Las Vegas, or you can spend $1,500 and have a great setup forever. It's like a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, well, that's an amazing take on that. That's really interesting idea. So there are a lot of different things that people find or choose to make the barriers, and the equipment is definitely one of them. Like, how much equipment do I need? How much of investment is this going to be? And you're right. So even for the budget that you described, that's an upscale studio. Like, my setup is similar. I also have a DSLR, professional lights, really good mic, and that's still all under $2,000.
Yeah.
But to get started and to just kind of MVP the process and see if live streaming is good for your brand, for your product, for your community, you can invest a fraction of that. $500 would get you a great web camera, decent standalone microphone. The lighting can be done through just well lit space with the sun itself, right?
Yeah.
And you are already trying and testing and giving yourself an opportunity to connect with all those people and all those communities and followers that you built.
I also think people should understand that pre-pandemic, whether we like to admit it or not, we would make instant judgments about people from the way they dress and that kind of stuff, right? I think people make instant judgments now. So if you're on a conference and you see a speaker and he or she is obviously using a laptop and the light is behind him or her and all this kind of stuff, I mean, you could be the greatest speaker in the world, but the initial impression is this clown doesn't have his or her act together. And so, people make this instant judgment, and now you can overcome that instant judgment. But I don't know, for $1,500, you don't have to dig yourself out of a hole. I mean, what am I missing here? Why would you want to convince yourself that you are better than what your physical setup says you are?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting input of like how people used to judge on how you dress or how you show up at the conference, and now they're judging by your equipment and your studio, even the background, right? Like, people generally compliment my sunrise or sunset situation depending on the time of the day and how you're feeling in terms of mood. But in general, like, it's obviously that's a choice, and like, you can change it, you can make it fun, you can make it professional, and that's kind of like a little bit of space for creativity and a little bit of space of building your brand and kind of being in line and working together with what you're trying to build and create. This is amazing. So there's some more questions about equipment. Of course, there are questions about microphones, brands of lights and cameras people should get. So like, I just shared his setup. I'm using Canon Elgato lights, and this is AKG microphone. I'll be happy to drop the link in the comments after the event, so you guys can like explore that. And of course, I'll probably get.
You know what? I will send a link to exactly my setup to you so that you can put it in.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, let me just.
Let's share the setups with people so they know exactly what we're using and explore them for themselves.
Every time I get in on one of these, people ask me, so what's your setup? So I finally create a Google Doc that explains everything. And now I just sent it to you. Okay, Anya. So
amazing.
Now you can cover the earth with that.
Amazing. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna share the link in the chat so people can just click on the doc, right?
Okay.
And I will also add that in the comments as we go. Here it is, like right there on our chat. Awesome. I'm seeing nice background. I'm saying, okay, thanks. That's great. Great idea. And there was a question about, can we filter the chats before they show up on the side? You actually do have an option to block things and to moderate the chat, but generally, if they already showed up, they're going to show up. You can turn off your chat and remove it if something bad happened. Generally, you want to trust your community if you're going to overlay your chat. That's my general recommendation.
I would say that's probably a good idea. Yes,
it's a good idea. Trust your community. Make sure that it's a little bit of a brave move if you're going to overlay your whole chat. Alternatively, you can just use the highlight, and in that case, you're in control and you're choosing and picking exactly what you are going to do. Awesome. Well, coming back to the influence question. So how would you define the key elements of influence? People say things like passion is contagious. People
Yeah.
say the expertise and the knowledge always attract other
Okay.
knowledge. How would you define like what
Okay.
it means to be influential,
I
especially
got
in the
it.
digital era?
There are three qualities. First, likability. So you have to be a likable person. Second is trustworthiness, that you are seen as a sincere and honest person. And the third is competence. So if you are a competent, likable, trustworthy person, you will be influential. That's how simple it is. Now, if you're not those three things, and for some reason you have a lot of power, you could also influence people. But I would say that influence is short-lived and it's really temporary. It's not like you have truly shared the good news and changed people's hearts and minds. You have just bought them off for a while, maybe.
Amazing. I love this very simple three components, right? Like they're so easy and like yeah, it's hard to not relate. So let me stop a little bit on the likable
Mhm.
one. So that's a
Mhm.
little bit of a subjective term, right? I might like you. I think you're amazing, but someone else might think like, okay, this Anya girl, I don't know. I mean, I can stand her for about 5 minutes, but then I have to check out and I need a break or a vacation. So how would you measure likability for influence when it's such a, kind of like
Well,
someone's opinion, man?
I think likability is about making eye contact, and that's even, I'll argue, it may be even more true in a virtual conference setting. It takes a great deal of discipline. So I have an iMac, and the iMac edge and camera is about 3 inches below the DSLR camera lens. And then 3 inches below the IMAX camera is actually more like 7 inches is your face. So, one of the simple things you have to just train yourself to is that if right now I'm looking in your eyes, okay? But everybody else is seeing me look
You're
down.
looking down, yeah.
Exactly. So I have to look up here, which is not natural. I'm staring into the camera lens now. So believe it or not, that is an element of virtual likability, that you're making eye contact and you think you're making eye contact looking down, but you're not. You have to look up. And that's a hard thing to remember. For the life of me, I mean, I wish some monitor manufacturer would just put a camera inside the monitor, right? I mean, how hard could it be? So take an iMac, or it doesn't have to be Apple, but take Samsung. Why can't you put a camera lens inside, like 6 or 7 inches down from the top of the monitor, so that when there's a window that Anya is in, the camera is at the same level as her face? How hard could that be? I don't understand that. Now, there are things where you can put mirrors and periscopes and, that kind of stuff, but it just becomes a wreck. And, another power tip I have for you, real practical tip is, and this may be a 1% solution, but I think a lot of people, they use their laptops or they use the setup, and they use that setup for all kinds of things, and they use that camera for all kinds of things. And so they take the camera off, and then they go and, I don't know, shoot their kid's soccer game, and then they put it back on, and they take their laptop and they travel around the world with it. They come back, and all of a sudden they want this to be a great setup. That is crazy. I think even today, I literally spent weeks perfecting the microphone going to I use a Roadmaster mixing box. So I have a Roadmaster. I have this is a XLR mic. It's not a USB mic, because real men use XLR. And so, once I had this thing perfected, I just leave it. And I'm not taking this iMac, to another room. I don't even touch that camera. I dare not touch it. Now, this is not to say that none of this is dependable or not, but there's so many little things that can go wrong with a loose connection, or you change let's say you take off your camera and go and shoot a soccer game, and you change the setting to the sports setting, or you change the focus area from center to side or wide to narrow, and then you come back and you stick it on 5 minutes before you're supposed to go live, and you think it's all going to work. You're deluding yourself. So I got in this whole diatribe, but the bottom line is, once you have a working system, don't touch it. Just dedicate it to this process.
That's amazing. I like that. Yeah. I mean, setting up your studio and figuring out your framing is a little bit of work in process. You need a couple of iterations, an iterable process. For at least for me, the studio that we have right now, we definitely went through a lot of modifications and little tweaks here and there. But yeah, once you're happy, you probably should stick with it. That's a great tip.
Just if you want to take pictures of your kids' soccer, go buy another camera. I'm telling you. You are going to spend hours trying to figure out what the hell was that setting that I had, and oh my God!
Yep.
I'm telling you because I went through this. Okay, so it would be like if you were a heart surgeon, you don't use your operating room and table for something else, and then say, oh God, I got to open heart surgery here. I got to reboot everything, get going. No,
that's a good analogy. I love that. Treat your setup as your surgical instruments, and that's a good one. That's a good one. So Andy here is asking a great question, which is kind of part of the flow that I had. Something that I definitely wanted to chat about. Great chat, thanks. Can you discuss building audience, followers, using social media or email? So what are your kind of high level practical tips for people who are just still on the path of creating that community and audience that they can serve?
Okay, building an audience and subscribers for a podcast, I think, is the hardest part of podcasting. And podcasting started 15 years ago. And of course, I started a year and a half ago. So shame on me, you dumbass, for starting so late. But anyway, so I started late. Now, I had the advantage of having, 6, 8, 10 million followers on social media. But I got to tell you that you would think that if you had, let's use a round number, you would think that if you had 10 million followers on social media, if you make a post that theoretically could reach 10 million people, I mean, how hard could it be to get 1 million people to download something? Just 10% of that, or be really conservative. How hard could it be to get 1%, 100,000 to download? Let me tell you something. It is very, very hard. I wish I could tell you I had 1% of my followers downloading. So I work with someone who is, I consider, the world's greatest social media person, Peg Fitzpatrick. And, we post to Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we post multiple times. I think a lot of people, they think that, if tomorrow I have a new episode with a guy named Rich Benoit, and he may be the wittiest person I've ever interviewed. And we talk about rebuilding wrecked Teslas. So if you're a Tesla owner, you might not want to tune in to my podcast tomorrow because he kind of rips on Tesla. But anyway, so we probably announce every episode 4 or 5 times on every platform. Now, there is a theory that you can't repeat your post. You can't repeat it because people are going to get pissed off that, how many times do you have to tell me to listen to Rich Benoit? I mean, you've said it once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once in the evening, yesterday and today. Well, guess what? There may be 0.0001% of people who complain, but generally speaking, you cannot make the assumption that because you posted it once to 10 million people, all 10 million people saw it. That is a very poor assumption. So tip number 1 is repeat your posts. I mean, and I would almost make the case that if people aren't complaining that you're repeating your post, you're not repeating it enough. Some people should be complaining.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a good,
and this person also asked about email. So we have an email list of about 20,000 people. And I would say that an email we use MailChimp is about, 20 times more valuable than a follower on social media. If I had a choice between, a huge email database or a huge followership, I would take an email database all day long.
Yeah. And even if that's in the context of promoting something like a podcast, when you actually want people to show up live or live stream,
Yeah.
email is still your go-to in terms of getting those audiences and getting
Yeah.
those eyeballs there. That's
I'm
an
also
interesting one.
I'm also using something called subtext. Other people may have heard of a competitor called Community, and what it enables you to do is create a community of people who have subscribed to get your text messages. Now, this only works in the U.S. and Canada, but my challenge there is I have 20,000 people in MailChimp and I have about 400 in subtext. In a perfect world, I would love for all 20,000 people on MailChimp to say, Guy, okay, I'm going to go to subtext instead. Now, some of that is just not possible because many of those 20,000 people are not in the US or Canada, but 90% of them are. So if you could tell me there's a magical way to get 18,000 people onto subtext, because I happen to believe that because there are so few people who use something like subtext or community, that the likelihood of a read and a click through from a text is far greater than even email. And email is far greater than a follower on a social media platform. So the pecking order, I think, would probably be a text-based community, an email-based community, and then a social media-based community.
That's amazing. That's very interesting. Super insightful. Well, I hope that answers the question. And we have another great one from Shalalalala Productions. I'm sorry if I said too many laws there. Question for both of us. Big fan. Question for both. When did you feel that you hit your rhythm and stride in marketing your live streaming programming? And what's your favorite variable to test? So, what do you feel like is your favorite thing to test and metric?
Honestly, I don't think I have hit my rhythm and stride yet. I'm still exploring it. I've been doing it. Yeah, Piggy could tell you. I think I've been doing it for about 3 months, and I'm learning every day. It's uh, now, because of the magic of Restream, we also bring on sometimes the guest. So last week I had Bob Cialdini, the author of Influence. So he came on and was restreaming with me to my 4 or 5 platforms simultaneously. So sometimes on a Wednesday it's just me. Sometimes it's me and the guest of the episode. And so I know we're making all this shit up as we go. We don't really. I mean, if somebody knows, maybe you could tell me, but I don't know.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a great answer because it is trial and error. And since the question is for both of us, for me too, I wouldn't say that I've hit my rhythm or my
Yeah.
perfect space in there. I'm hosting 4 shows. Like historically, there were 2 that don't run anymore. But for me, it was definitely every day is different. Every
Yeah.
community is different. Every guest is different. Some guests create a phenomenal engagement, and not necessarily because they're big and famous. And some guests are just, not as engaging as others. And same for me. Sometimes I'm like on it and I'm hyping everything up, and sometimes I'm kind of like, all right, this is the stream of today. So yeah, definitely, I would say for me, the metric that I'm measuring big time is the views and the engagement. And the engagement is the number one in priority, because I'd rather have 100 people who showed up and talked and asked questions and engaged with me in the chat than have 1,000 people who watched for 40 seconds. That's probably what YouTube will count as a view, and then completely check out or like scroll through. So engagement, meaningful conversations, substance questions like this one from Shalala Productions is for me an indicator that the people are actually watching and interacting.
Yep.
And this is an experience
Absolutely.
that they crave. Very nice segue to what you mentioned about guests earlier. Do guests need to download anything to join, like Guy in this example? What is the user experience on the back end? Especially for potential guests like Guy that might not be too tech savvy. Excuse me. Guy is the host of a couple of shows. I think he's very tech savvy. I think that's just humor.
Well, so I know what I had to do to get on this. I had to click on a link, and then I had to turn on. I had to demute my camera and demute my microphone. So
Yeah, definitely. No
I mean,
downloads.
even a politician could do that.
That's a good one. That's a good response. Yeah, for your guests, the UX is extremely simple. It's very straightforward. Since even as a host, since we're a browser solution, you do not have to download anything. You just have to register and you go live directly from your browser. But for your guests, it's a simple link that they click. They connect their camera and microphone if they're not connected already to their system, and then they're right here. So no downloads or registrations required. So pretty
Well,
simple and straightforward.
that's another reason not to screw around with your system, because you take your camera off, shoot the soccer game, bring it on. Now you better remember that you got to change the camera to the DSLR, not the built-in, and just don't touch your system once you got it perfected. It's the advice. You're gonna regret it.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm seeing some comments on great insights in terms of your texting advice, like get your email list, but also your text lists, and several platforms that allow you to do that and streamline the process. Great insights. Thanks, Guy. WhatsApp is text-based and working well as a small level for me. That's another good opportunity to
Yeah.
use your messaging system on social media platforms or things like WhatsApp, because you probably have a lot of contacts there, and people would be much more reactive to you saying, hey, I'm here. I'm going to go live. Come join me. Talk.
I'm American. I don't use WhatsApp.
I don't use WhatsApp, but I mean, there's some other text messaging systems. Like I know Facebook has its own messenger and several others. So yeah, definitely use what you have. Like one of the advices that I like to give people primarily about gear, but just in general about live streaming, the best stuff that you can possibly use today, if you're starting your live streaming, is the stuff that you have. And if you have a great WhatsApp list, do it. If you have a wonderful DSLR camera, connect that one. If the web camera is all you got, that's your best camera for today, right? And then you can build on and upgrade as you move on and as you go. Great. So another question that I like to ask people who are evangelists and the brand advocates is regarding amplifying voices through live video. Do you see how that live streaming could be a great and powerful vehicle for amplifying voices, especially the underrepresented ones? Do you feel like now with live streaming, there's kind of like more room and more space for them?
Well, yeah, I mean, in a sense, I think live streaming kind of represents the democratization of newscasting, right? I mean, so anybody can have a channel. God forbid, it could be positive or negative, but I mean, I'm old enough to remember when there was only ABC, CBS, and NBC. There were 3 channels to watch, and then CNN was a huge deal. And now, God, I don't even know how many channels there are. There's hundreds. So, and that's like real commercial enterprise channels. If you were to add all the live streaming, in a sense, it's millions of channels. So talk about a democratization. Yeah, I mean, anybody could have a channel now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the power of live streaming, that everything that was missing before, that representation, that space, that voice, now is basically at your fingertips, right? Like all you need to do is invest time, think about your content. And if you have a powerful message to deliver, there is an audience for that. There's always an opportunity to reach them.
Put the chat overlay back. I love the chat overlay.
You like the overlay? Okay, here we go. So it will start popping in as new questions are coming in, and I'm going to remind folks, send your questions.
Yeah, Jeff C.
Guy.
Everybody has a
Here's Jeff.
studio. That's right.
Yeah, and Jeff was mentioning earlier that he's very happy that Guy will never change his setup. That's very important for Jeff as your remote producer. He mentioned that this is important.
Wait, what moving background? Who's got a moving background?
This is a good one. I've been admiring the moving background. How do you do that? Like, that's a good question. So, Guy, if you pay attention to the squares behind us, like you see those squares, and this is actually the moderate one. We actually do the crazier ones as well. I just felt like this is more representative of our vibe. But of course, we have stuff like this if you really want to go like space crazy, and they're more dynamic and intense.
I thought somebody put something in my brownies here for a second. So.
That's a good one. Actually, it's me. I'm putting things in your brownie, and that's why like the squares are moving around. This is really cool. Like you see, it works. Like that's one of the things that I remember making a tutorial about the animated backgrounds, and I was saying like, hey, this is your opportunity to get this hey moment. Like you snap people out of the scrolling and browsing because they see something was moving, and I kind of like it subtle. What do you think, Guy? Would you rather have like a subtly moving background that makes you think that some wires got
Me,
crossed,
me
or like
personally, I just want them riveted by me. I don't want them looking at the background.
that's a good one. That's a good one. That is fair point. Another great question here from Who's Ever Believers. That's a good one. That's a good name. Do you plan out a newsletter when you go live? So do you support your live streams or podcasts with, hey, I'm going to be live on this day, and hey, this is my cliff notes from my last episode?
I do not do the here's my cliff notes.
Mhm.
Well, we definitely pre-announce every live appearance as well as announce every episode coming. So yeah, we're trying to build up as many people as possible watching our live video. Also, I live a somewhat charmed life that somehow some of these platforms believe I'm significant enough. So depending on who you know or who knows of you, things like these platforms can jack up the amount of notifications going out. So a platform could tell all my followers, Guy is going live right now, click here to watch. So that typically happens when a platform is rolling out live video. So when they introduce live video, they want to show why you should participate in live video. So they pick some people and they announce that, Dwayne Johnson is now live on LinkedIn and all his followers get that notice. Believe me, that helps.
Yeah, that's a good one. Kind of like thinking about how you can utilize the algorithms. And with something like Restream, one of the options that you have is you can schedule your live stream in advance. This is what we did with this show. And this is available for your LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. It creates this cool little postcard on your platform feed. And people have a button where they can say, hit the button and say, remind me when this is happening. So not only your people know when exactly you're going to go live, they will also get a notification that they can opt in for instead of getting potentially annoying notification at the wrong time, and join you exactly when you're ready. So that's a pretty powerful thing and an element of something like Restream Studio that like I personally use all the time. So that's something that I recommend. And yeah, and then there's another question here about like, is there a kind of highlight function that user can highlight parts and share them? So again, if you're talking about like the live stream and the hosting, so as a host, I can highlight whatever messages I want and I'm choosing on top of the chat overlay, and but you cannot highlight parts of the message if that's the question. So I hope that that makes sense. And here's a comment from Pac that I think is really cool. I really like the email that you get from YouTube if you ask for a reminder for the show. So that's how YouTube treats notifications. So for example, Facebook notifies you with a typical Facebook notification, the same one that you would get if someone liked or shared your post.
Same one you ignore 20 times a day, yes.
Exactly, because you probably get too many. But YouTube actually sends you an email, which, depending on what kind of email address you have associated with your YouTube account, might or might not be that easily ignored. So that's a great tip, Pac. Thank you so much for pointing this out. This is amazing. Awesome. There's some questions about custom layout. So this layout that I have, the moving squares, is actually our standard on Restream Studio, but you do have an option to upload your own animated background if you have something branded and customized. So that's available already as of today. I'd like
you're not using OBS, Wirecast, or VMix at all, right?
No, and I'll tell you the ultimate truth about this. I don't know how, especially OBS. I mean, maybe to save my life, I would figure that out. But honestly, I'm not using those like complex software solutions because I prefer the simplicity, and I want it to be easy. I want it to be intuitive. And I remember opening OBS for the first time when I started with Restream many years ago. And I felt like the software is defeating me. And I don't want to be defeated by software. So that's basically the internal joke, is that Restream Studio was kind of meant for me and people like me who kind of don't want to learn OBS, but still want to do the cool things. And as you see right now, there are a lot of cool things that we can show and do. So yeah, that's
But
amazing.
90% is the quality of the guest.
Agreed. And I got a jackpot here. So today we're just nailing that.
We
Well,
don't need no moving backgrounds.
no, just a good guess. That's actually a super pro tip for people who are thinking about how do I start with live streaming? Well, get yourself a great guest and he'll do the job. That's a good step one. I like to ask people like you who are thinkers, evangelists, philosophers in a way about the future of content, right? Here at
Yeah.
Restream, we believe that the future of content is live. It's interactive, it's a two-way street, it's trustworthy, it's trust building because it's not polished,
Mhm.
it's real. What are your thoughts on the future of content and how the social media of, the future is going to look like? And we're talking 10 years, 50 years, maybe 100 years from now.
Surely you jest. I have no idea. I don't listen. I remember a few years back where we thought that, Facebook didn't really exist, and we thought MySpace would be the operating system of the internet. Like literally, MySpace would be controlling the internet, and I don't know, Apple and would have a little department store on MySpace's world. And clearly we were wrong because none of us are using MySpace today. So I always remember that when people ask me this question about predicting the future. I don't think you can predict anything beyond maybe 6 months, even 6 months. I mean, 6 months before Clubhouse came out, who predicted Clubhouse? Nobody.
Nobody.
And 6 months from now, I don't think you could predict what Clubhouse would be. Clubhouse could be gone in 6 months, or Clubhouse could be dominating social audio. Nobody really knows.
That's very accurate, but still, like, what would you imagine? Like, what would you like it to be if you were in charge? If you could build any kind of system, any kind of type of content, any kind of way of
Well,
exchanging,
I
like, where would
I
you go?
I would love. This can happen to any current platform. I would love a system based on you pay $5 a month and you get no ads. That's that's what I'd be happy to pay for that. I just don't want ads interfering into my space.
Makes
Although,
sense.
although we're going to start using Facebook ads to position to publicize my podcast, but for tomorrow, for example, when we interview Rich Benoit about Tesla, I know I can go to Facebook and type in, I want to find people who speak English and have expressed an interest in Tesla, and spend $1,000 and reach 150,000 people. I don't know how else you can do that. So for all the complaints about Facebook and how bad it is and how it created all this mistruths and blah 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 and election riots and all that, from a small business perspective, what can do what you want to do, which is advertise to a specific group of people, better than Facebook? I mean, you tell me what can do it better than Facebook, because I'll go there, but I can't see anything that does it as well as Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Pay-per-click is still one of the major sources of new customer acquisition for most
Mm-hmm.
businesses. Let's face it. And yes, you might like it, you might not like it, but even as a consumer, I think what's interesting about this, and you might, as an evangelist of Canva, kind of like second or debate that, if the ad is done right, and
Yeah.
think about ads today in multiple forms, right? There's an ad that could be just an image, there's an ad that could be a video, like a little animation, a gif, a
Yep.
graphic. So whatever that is, if it's done right and it's exciting and it's engaging, it's actually not that annoying. We
Nope.
recently had a conversation about this with our CEO, and he mentioned that he never skips YouTube ads these days because a lot of the YouTube ads that at least he's being served are creative. They keep you attention. You kind of want to know what happens. We want to know what is that product that they're advertising, because it's just so creative and so interesting and kind of like out of the box. So I'm curious if live streaming eventually, or live video content eventually, will become that vehicle to build that creativity, to build that anticipation, and to then finally introduce a brand and product as it kind of takes over more and more social media avenues and more and more
Well,
platforms.
I mean, why not? only so many people can go to Apple's WWDC, right? So, I mean, why not? Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a very interesting post-pandemic world. Hopefully, we get to a post-pandemic world that, I have not gotten on an airplane since February. Not this February, last February.
Last
And
February.
if
Yeah.
it's up to me, I would never get on an airplane again, except to go to Hawaii. So, if I were a CMO of a company, and I've been used to having these 25,000 person, Dreamforce kind of conference in San Francisco or Orlando or Las Vegas. And then the pandemic hit and you couldn't have that kind of thing. Well, it's not all bad news, because you spend, I don't know, 5, 10, $15 million doing WWDC. Actually, I heard that they spent $50 million doing WWDC. How you could spend $50 million doing WWDC is beyond me, but that's a different discussion. So let's say it's $25 million to do a, I don't know, 50,000 person conference. And the logistics and the hotels and the room nights, and then you got to pay egomaniac speakers, $250,000 to speak, and blah, 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 blah. And you have to charge people $2,500 admission ticket, and then they have to fly there, and then they have to have, oh my God. And then you got to hire, Angelina Jolie and whoever, Taylor Swift, to make the concert on Saturday night. That's how you get to 50 million, I guess. And so, or you could do a virtual conference, and, maybe, I bet you if 10,000 people can come to a $2,500 conference plus expenses, 50,000 people could come to a $500 virtual conference. And so if you're a CMO of a company, which would you prefer? Would you rather have 50,000 people or 10,000 people in person? Personally, I'd rather have 50,000. So I think we're going to be virtual, or at least hybrid, for a very long time. And that said, this means streaming is a good business for a long time.
That is a very valid point. I also like to point this out when people ask, what do you think is going to happen to live streaming when pandemic is over? To your point, agreed that we now had this great case study and proof that virtual works, and it's actually less expensive, and ROI can be just exponentially higher. And also all the investment that people made in the streaming. Like, we started with describing your studio, and that's a couple of $1,000s. What are you going to do with this? Just throw it away and be like, no, I'm going to be real now. Of course, people are going to continue utilizing the spaces that they already built and the opportunities that they already created by going live on social or doing the virtual conferences. And that is a perfect segue to a great question, or I guess comment from Jeff. Jeff says, being able to multi-stream to the second largest search engine, YouTube, is a huge deal. Your video can live forever. So that's another important thing to consider when you go live. We'll always have this conversation as a video on demand. People can watch it on replay. Hello, everyone who is watching us on replay right now. And people can come back to this conversation, and it can generate views. And it also helps with search engine optimization, because if you put the keywords right and the description correctly, people discover you. So what are your thoughts on repurposing video like that? So this is kind of like an automatic repurposing, right? Like, once you went live, everything stays on the platform. Anything else that you personally do with your live videos to kind of like utilize the content over and over again and generate engagement around it?
I don't know. You have to ask Peg. So Peg really is the expert behind me in this. But I will tell you an attitude that I have that I think is highly unusual amongst paid speakers, which is, I really don't care what you do with my video. A lot of people, they're very paranoid. They restrict use. Only the people who paid for attending the conference can get to the archive and all that. And I just don't give a shit. I mean, I tell these events, you can do anything you want with the video, but if you sell it, you better give me a piece of the action. But other than that, you can host it, you can archive it, you can play it publicly, privately. I don't really care. And my attitude, unlike most speakers, is that, if you believe that someone can watch an archived version of your speech and get the same value as a live version or a version specifically for your company, then I'm a shitty speaker. So I'm not worried about that. I think the more you speak, the more you speak. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, and that's great. That's a great way to think about it and to look at that. You're bringing value right now. This is the opportunity for people to ask questions directly, and this is the most valuable moment. But yes, then later on, if people can discover you, learn something about remarkable people, learn
yeah,
something about the brands that you are working with, great, good for them, good for you, good for your brands. So everybody wins. So that's pretty amazing. Well, that is an exciting conversation. I really hate to wrap it up, but this is we're coming up to an end of our hour. It was absolutely wonderful and amazing talking to you, Guy, today. Thank you so
thank
much for your
you.
time and
Thank
for your
you.
inputs. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today in the chat. Great questions, great insights today. I appreciate each and every one of you. You can definitely catch this on replay and reach out to Restream. And I'm also going to show a couple of captions of how you can connect with Guy.
Wait,
So if you, huh?
aren't we, we're doing
Yeah, we're
a
still.
live.
Oh, we're doing a high five. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But first,
Okay,
but first, I want to make sure that people
I'm
find
ready.
you. You're ready. I want to make sure that people can find you. So guykawasaki.com/remarkable people is how you can find out about the podcast.
Well, it's
And
even simpler than that. You just go to Remarkable People.
just go to remarkable people.
As a matter of fact, let me tell you something. It's not like we have a time limit. Like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, interrupt the next show on CNN? So, I discovered, and I do not know how I achieved this. Okay, but so I have guests on my podcast like Jane Goodall, Steve Wozniak, Bob Cialdini, Angela Duckworth. I could go on and on. I think, the best guest list in all of podcasting. And I discovered something that if you went to any search engine and you typed in Jane Goodall, remarkable, I'm the first or second result in Google. So the word remarkable with my remarkable guests, I'm the first or second result. I don't know how I achieved that because I'm not an SEO kind of guy. So so basically, if you know of a remarkable person, type in his or her name plus remarkable, and if that person's been on my podcast, you'll go straight to my podcast.
You're gonna find them. Well, that's the power of great naming. All right, and now on to the high five. Now
Okay,
I'm
there you
ready.
go.
1, 2, and 3.
Close enough.
It was good enough. It was close enough. Well, thanks again, everybody. This is Guy
Here,
Kawasaki.
let's do
Oh, we can do that. Yeah, ready? 1, 2, and 3.
There you go.
Boom.
See?
Here we go. Cheers to this.
I bet Joe Rogan doesn't know how to do that.
We're gonna test it out next time we have him on our live
See,
show.
look. So Randy Mitchell just tested me, and that's the top result. You see?
Yep. Here we go.
Just
It works.
another skill to add to my set. SEO optimization. That's me, baby.
on that bright note, thanks again, everybody, for showing up today. This is Guy Kawasaki, Restream Special Edition, and cheers.
Bye.